Great. Well, welcome everybody to a really hot topic. We had over 100 signups, and I'm sure some people will be watching the recording though. The topic is super hot because it's how to influence senior leaders in 10 minutes. So there is some reasoning behind why we chose that title, not just to grab attention. We've got some really cool techniques that we want to share with you, but it doesn't just it won't be a silver bullet, sorry, a golden bullet, but there will be some silver bullets in there, and it's just about how we practice. So my name's Saad. For those who don't know, I run the L&D means business learning cluster for L&D Shakers. And as the name suggests, it's all about how do we connect what we do in L&D with business goals. And of course, communicating with senior leaders is super important. Why have I got into this topic as well? Because my background is I'm a C leader, both from a learning background, but also from a commercial background. So I've grown revenue. And on the side, I do coaching in executive presence and communication skills. So it's a really strong, passionate area, an area that I couldn't communicate in before many years ago, but I've now been able to. So I want as many people as possible on this call to sort of learn some of the tricks and tips from each other. I'm really pleased to say that we've got someone really awesome, Jenny. I'll let her introduce herself. She's got a vast array of experience in the finance world, insurance adjacent kind of industries, and we've been working how long? A year plus 2 years even. It feels
Yeah,
a
about a
while.
year. Feels like two
About a
years,
year.
but it's been good.
Good. Yeah, yeah. So what I would say is that this is just a start. We plan to run these how to influence senior leaders sessions 3 times a year. If you really want to know how to actually go about learning these skills, then please come along to our L&D Means Business Clinic, which does have a lot more practical elements in there. But Jenny, over to you to say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, thanks. So happy to be here. Thanks, Saad, for having me on. So I'm actually originally from Colorado in the US, if you could tell from my accent. So Sarah, I think you said that you were from Colorado, but yeah, lived in the US all my life. Only a few years ago, I've moved over to London with my husband's family, and yeah, been here for the last 3 years. So my background is in HR consultancy. So start off my career there, helping various industries and companies grow their HR departments, scale their infrastructure, look at all facets of the HR pillar, if you will. In the last 7 years, that's when I've really kind of found my passion in learning and development, really helping people grow, focused on kind of unlocking that potential, thinking about kind of fun, innovative ways to create learning and engagement and things like that. So have worked with financial technology partners, KPMG. My most recent experience is with Direct Line Group, kind of growing their management and leadership portfolio, what those programs look like, what's the future skills we're looking at, and how do we make sure that all those managers and leaders are exhibiting kind of future-proof skills, and what those look like. So that's a little bit about myself.
So I'm so excited because you've got such wide range of expertise. And what I would say for those who join our normal sessions like this, they're called fireside chats, and normally we have a conversation. But this time, Jenny and I have decided to shake it up because of the topic, and we want you to leave with some skills. So here's what the plan looks like. For the next 15 minutes only, Jenny and I are gonna talk for as sort of less as possible, just to set the scene, spark a bit of thinking. After 15 minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a cheat sheet which has 6 tips in the ways you can present, pitch differently to senior leaders. It's not the whole holy grail answer, but hopefully it will spark some thinking for you. We're going to put you into breakout rooms of threes, ideally, and where you'll pick one tip and that relates to you and discuss as a group and how you might change and your approach or what you might do differently and learn from each other. We don't normally do that in fireside chats, but we thought this would be different. So 15-minute fireside chat, about a good 15 minutes in the breakout rooms. We'll ask you to come back, debrief, share what you think. And then we've got a really surprise exercise. This is simple exercise that we use when we coach clients in this space. So we won't tell you what it is now, but we'll do a practical exercise, and that is going to help you communicate succinctly, we hope. So that's the format for today. So I thought I'd share that because I know many of you do attend previous fireside chats and might not be familiar with that format. So back to you, Jenny. We were talking before, right, about a situation that you faced where you thought you were going into a C-leader meeting and you were prepared with everything, you were ready, plan A, B, C, D, E, and everything changed in that meeting and you had to rip out what you knew. I think a lot of us could probably relate to that. What was that situation? Talk to us about it and how did you pivot?
Yeah, no, it's definitely one to remember for the books. This was my time during my L&D role at FD Partners. So they're, for those of you who don't know of them, they're a small boutique investment bank. They focus in advisory services. So think M&A, IPOs, private equity deals. And when you kind of think about investment bank culture, it is all about fast pace, intense, cutthroat. It's usually male dominated. 80-hour work weeks are the norm, and usually there's quite a bit of kind of that leadership behavior that's probably not the best. Everybody's kind of role modeling the seniors. You've got people in there that are, they grew up there basically, right? They've started off as analysts and associates, and then they've now worked their way up into the directors and MDs. And so a lot of that is kind of following in each other's footsteps around, how you should behave, how you should act. And if you make mistakes, it's not the best to be doing that. So that's kind of I just want to kind of paint the context of where we're in, where I was working in, and kind of why getting kind of buy-in for this leadership development program was a bit tough. So as Saad mentioned, I was tasked and brought in to basically work on how do we make sure we're upskilling all of our senior leaders, because there was a lot of turnover. Performance issues were kind of at its high. And we started seeing a lot of kind of burnout, even though obviously, 80-hour weeks were quite normal in this situation. But we were seeing kind of significant patterns around that. So something kind of had to change in terms of the culture, how we were making sure that our senior leaders were actually developing our juniors, what that needed to look like. We did see some really consistent feedback around kind of the upskilling needed from both senior leaders as well as our junior staff saying that. So basically, I ended up kind of taking 2 weeks, because that was kind of the deadline of putting together this compelling business case, I guess, if you will. So if you guys have all kind of built your pretty slides or been in this same situation, I basically did all this research. I was looking at, impact, ROI, what's the business case for upskilling leaders? What are those key benefits? Looking at different vendors and doing kind of all of that analysis and putting together into this nice, lovely deck. And I had an hour with the CEO in 2 weeks' time, and obviously practicing, going over it, making sure that I was kind of hitting all those points. But ultimately, what ended up happening was I saw the CEO. It was like a couple days, I think, before my actual assigned meeting. And I saw him in the kitchen, had a nice little chat, and then he was like, "Hey, I've got 10 minutes actually. I know we were supposed to talk about that proposal that we had maybe in the next couple of days, but I actually can't make that. Can we actually talk in my office right now?" So I think like that's when it was like, oh shoot, like what the heck am I gonna say? I've got this deck. How am I supposed to talk to him in like 10 minutes? Like, what do I even say? So I kind of gathered my thoughts, like took a look at the deck in like the 2 seconds that I had, grabbed a cup of water, went into his office, and basically the first thing he said was, why are we spending this money? Like, tell me why we can't develop, these people ourselves. So obviously this deck, when I put it all together, like I knew what I was going to talk about, but obviously saying in 10 minutes, like that was always a challenge. But I remember, basically kind of tying it to answering his question essentially, right? Like he's worried about money and anything deal related, nobody really cares about. So I kind of like just made that connection quickly and basically focused on, right? It's costing us money because we are having people leave the business. Performance is at its low. We're not putting our best people and best productivity into like all the deal work. So and essentially you're kind of seeing not the best coming out of your deal work and things like that. And so that's kind of where I kind of tied my answer and tried to kind of make him understand that if we did have the skill set in house, we wouldn't be seeing these performance issues, seeing the turnover that we are seeing, and ultimately, leading to maybe not having some of the best deal work that we're doing. So that's kind of what happened, and it was really obviously quite stressful. But I think obviously doing that deck, it was great to like be able to contribute and know like what I was talking about, just obviously how to do it quite succinctly. So yeah, that was the long and the short of what ended up happening.
There's so many tips in there because one of the things that I think we can be guilty of, and you don't just need to be an L&D leader in this space. Many managers, leaders, where we show all of our thought process, we show all of our investigative work and background research, and we think they need this because we needed it in order to arrive at the conclusion. But sometimes you don't need to show them all the math work, right? You're not going to get graded on that. To show them the end outcome. And what I tend to do, I tend to skip through, I tend to hop around my presentation. There's a time where I went in reverse order in my presentation. It was really odd. So I started with the end outcome, which is what said, and I'm requesting this budget, and here's why. And I kind of almost worked back through that was when I first realized that there's no linear process in a conversation. I have one or two slides, and then I just, depending on where the conversation is flowing, I would say, oh, I've got something for that. Here's a slide. And so I think if you're thinking of a linear presentation, or if you're thinking you're pitching, don't see it as a pitch, see it as a true conversation. So what do you think, if you could go back, right? Like what tips would you give your old self or your young self, depending on which way you look at it?
Yeah.
What would you do?
Def-
What would be the top two tips?
yeah, it's a good question. I think I think my first foremost tip is just around knowing your audience. Who are you talking to, right? And just being able to relate to them, speak their language. Because I think with the CEO, he is all about money and like the deals, right? Who is getting the best deals, who's closing the biggest and largest deal, right? So if I was able to tie in anything about deal related into my answers, like he was listening and that grabbed his attention, and so I think just kind of thinking about what's a language and what are types of words of who you're speaking to. And if you can weave that into anything you're saying, that's really helpful. I mean, for example, like a finance person, right? Like if you're talking to CFO, anything to do with numbers, anything that kind of relates to the bottom line, that's going to really grab that attention. And I think the second one is, I think really understanding like how do you again kind of connect your reasoning, connect kind of what you're trying to do and anchor that with what really matters to them. So again, tying it to performance, tying it to the different strategic priorities. you know again, I guess it's similar to like saying that same language, but it's kind of really focused on how are you tracking against kind of different priorities and progress without it being so much that it's just a separate L&D thing that you're doing that other departments might not worry or care too much about.
Yeah,
I think
I
those would
think
be
that's
my
a
two
good point.
tips.
That's a good point. And those two tips are probably the two that I would have put down on my list. If I was to have like a top five, those two would definitely make it. Um, So normally we would go on for a little longer, but we do want people to engage and in breakouts this time round for those who have just joined. Any questions that anyone has for Jenny? Maybe you can relate to this. Feel free to share your struggles and we will empathize with you and give you sympathy as well. Feel free to come off mute or if you want to share in the chat.
Yeah, I'll come off mute real fast. So something similar kind of happened to me, not in a lunchroom format like Jenny, because I don't know, I probably I probably would have not known what to say in that moment. But we have a presenting to executives course here at our job, and my boss was like, hey, there's room in that course, and I was like, yeah, okay. And then he was like, hey, I saw a note that there's still like a spot, you want to, so he was kind of like hinting like you should go take this class. So I did, and I did have to do a presentation to one of our executives, and I basically got like you, Saeed, like through like two slides, and the executive started asking. It was like 20 minutes of questions, and then finally he was like, "Okay, let me just let you finish your presentation, Crystal." So it's kind of the same thing, right? It was like he just started asking questions after like two slides, and I just had to answer them. I mean, luckily, I had been through a bunch of reiterations of the presentation with my manager who was there with me, but still it was kind of very similar to that. But if I wouldn't have taken that presenting to executives course to understand like how to lay out a presentation and what to be prepared for and kind of anticipating, like try to anticipate their questions, I don't know what I would have done either. So very similar to Jenny's situation.
Yeah, that's great, Crystal. I think you bring up a really good point because I think it's really important to still do that groundwork, like
Mhm.
going through that deck is or in building that business case or whatever you're doing. I think it's still a really good exercise, right? Because it helps you get your thoughts, helps you kind of structure potentially the flow, etc. And like you know what you're talking about because you built it, right? Which is great. But obviously, yeah, it's not about, I think to both of your points is like you could just you might not use a couple of the slides, but at least at least what's in there. How do you
Mhm.
actually like answer different questions? But yeah, it's like it's definitely not like a wasted, work or exercise. I do want to make sure that that comes through. Thank you for sharing. Any other questions or any other stories that anybody wants to share?
Sarah.
Not a story, but just echoing what you guys have all been saying about like the exercise of going through going through the process of preparing is so valuable, not only to figure out what you think about the thing, right? But to be prepared to have answers to whatever questions may come at you. Like that process, spending that time, like you just said a moment ago, Jenny, like it's never wasted because you're going to be so much more able to think on your feet when it comes to that moment.
Definitely. And I think what's great is you can use it for different various things, like even once you've implemented, right? So for example, like I use part of what I built in like the comms and engagement plan. Some of the slides I end up using, convincing and influencing some of the rest of the senior leaders, right? When we did launch everything. So can always use the little bits and pieces for different audiences, which is really great.
Yeah, I think that's the key. I think once you've in the first 5 to 10 minutes, if you watch body language and you can see someone is got a question, just don't wait because you're going to lose them for the remainder 20 minutes that you're going to speak. And so get the questions out, ask, and be ready to pivot. So if you ask me what the one skill is as Sarah was saying, thinking on your feet. That's not a skill necessarily just for C leaders, but it just so happens that they throw curveballs at you more than the average person. And so being able to not feel like, they waste my time, because sometimes we get into negative talk and we can sometimes make the senior leaders, top management, the enemy, and which it does ourselves a disservice. And so that's the other tip that I would say. But if there's no other question, I'm sure we'll have plenty of more time. I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. I'm really excited to do this because we haven't actually done this before. What I'm going to do is send you the 6 tips via PDF in the chat. So I can see a few people are nodding heads. So hopefully you've got that. The aim of the exercise for 15 minutes is just pick one, maybe silently for a minute or so, just scan individually, see where which tip sounds like interesting and exciting to you. You may find that you're all looking at the same one, but if you're not, then maybe just pick one between you and have a discussion about what it means for your practice. So we're all about reflective practice. What does it mean? How do you pitch? How do you present? What do you talk about? And then we'll see you back in 15 minutes. Sound okay with everyone? Great. All right. So let me just open up the breakout room. So there we go. All right. So create option. Yeah, so 15 minutes. I'm going to open up all rooms. All right. See you shortly. Jenny and I might hop around. Just checking, Giant, that you've got the invite for the breakout room. Awesome. And Shrideep as well. Hope you can click on the invite for the breakout. Ah, okay. Yeah, no worries. No worries, Shrideep. You can stay in the main room if you like. Just listen in. I'm gonna join one of the other rooms though, if that's okay. So I'll see you back in about 15 minutes or so. Cool, cool. Great, welcome back. We kind of were mid-flow in our group, and then we just got kicked out of the meeting. I'm sure that's the same for everyone else. I'd love to just hear a little bit. We're going to do an interesting exercise in a minute, but I wanted just to hear from. I would love to hear the reflections. Like, what did you pick? Which tip did you pick? I want to know like what resonated with people and what came out of your group. Does anyone wanna share?
Sure. Let me start. So the one that we had picked was, do you pitch present or do you guide and facilitate a debate? So NITS was in the same room, so was Floor, and later I think Ravi joined. So the question was, is that just that do you pitch present or do you try to understand, what the mood is before you really getting into the actual pitch as such? The point that was raised was essentially that there has to be an attempt made to ensure that you're on the same page as the other party. The challenge out there is to ensure that the actual problem is understood by L&D and that the problem is the same as what the other person thinks too. The it has to be viewed as a solution to the problem, not an activity in itself. And only if you share the impression or idea of the problem are you going to get anywhere. So we have to make sure we are on the same page. We have to make sure we understand the problem. Very frequently, there is a challenge. That was a point that was raised out there because people come to us with a request saying that I need this particular training. There's no why, wherefore, nothing behind it. Right? And when we go, and discuss that with a member of the senior leadership, and if they don't have that idea at all, sometimes we are lost because we don't know the background behind the request. All we can say is so and so in business came to us with a request, which doesn't help. So understanding that is, I think, a problem. That is one part. Secondly, the type of request may be different. Sometimes it may be budget, but not always. Sometimes it may be that you want that person to reinforce the importance and back this program so that everyone takes it seriously, so that all the stakeholders take it seriously. If the CEO says that this program is extremely important and I'm going to track it myself and I want everyone to complete it and do well in it, then that might be the message that you go to the person for. You might want them. That might be your ask or your request. But at the same time, that person needs to be convinced that this is really worthwhile to back. So it could be many types of requests that are there, and but either which way, the main thing that came out was we need to make sure that we have a common understanding of the problem. And sorry, the second thing that came up was that we need to go with at least anticipate a little bit and go with 3 or 4 options, so that depending on the way the conversation goes, we might need to pick one. So it might be a good idea to pick ahead of time because not all of us are that quick thinkers, right? So we might need to do the thinking ahead of time, prepare and go.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you've connected to 2 other tips. The third one, which is often we are seen as middle people. There's too many occasions where when I coach L&D colleagues, if I ask them, well, why did you come up with that? And the answer inadvertently is, oh, because that's what we're being told on the ground. And if you can't, with credibility, back that play, then that's where the senior leaders start to lose a bit of trust in what you're saying. So absolutely, you're right. We need to, and I like what you said about the options because sometimes you have to create them on the spot with people. So, okay, so what do you think? If this is not the problem, what do you think? Okay, so we've got 2 potential options. We've got what one option here, which is we're trying to be a trusted brand. So let's do something on value-based selling, for example. But your priority is you want to build accountability in the leadership. Okay, so we've got 2 options. And so I really like your suggestion of labeling, tagging, coming up with instead of a fixed idea, being really flexible. And that's super. That agility is on the spot is really, really key. Thank you. Pick another group. Does anyone else want to share what you selected as the tip and what would you do differently? Because the main thing I wanted to come away with is, other than inspiration, hopefully, is what would you do differently if you were to take on board the tip? So any other group? Don't be shy.
We
Go, go on, Sarah.
yeah, well, I was in the room with Jenny and Karen, and though like Karen usually uses the dark green and I would go for the pink, but what we would do differently, we agreed that we could look more on the white. It overlaps with like what we already do, but it's something that we can explore further for people who would like more of, as like as I've called it, like a show and tell, like to give them a picture on what we're trying to achieve, so decisions could be faster when they start like visualizing what we're trying to do.
I like that. Who else? Who else was in your group? Jenny and
Karen,
Karen. Cool.
I mean, if Karen and Jenny want to add anything, please go ahead.
I think we just we chatted a lot about what you guys were currently doing, which was great, the recap, and then being able to kind of pitch the idea. But I think that's great. And then we also chatted about like some of the things that didn't work well or hasn't worked well in the past as well. So it was good to kind of have that conversation along with how we're focused on, doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. And one thing actually that like was a bit of a realization is that why I use the pink or why Karen uses the dark green, it's again depending on the audience or the type of people that we speak to. So I speak more to sales directors and sales leaders, while she speaks to her HR director who has a fast-paced way of thinking. So it really depends on the people. So I think we can use any of the 6 tips, but it really depends on the type of senior leader we're targeting.
I think that's a good point. Just a quick show of hands or emoji. Is anyone assigned to a particular business line, so sales or customer service, or are you across all? So the question is, put your hand up if you are assigned to a specific business line. Sarah, Linda, Sarah, Grace. Okay, about four or five people. You guys are in a beautiful situation because you don't have to think widely, in terms of absolutely every single business problem across the business. You have to be a generalist. So my previous job was executive general manager. So I had product, sales, IT, the whole lot, and I had to think a lot about the whole thing. So out of interest, Sarah, yours is without a H, yours is sales?
Yes, sales and operations team, but mainly we are like usually we're more focused on the sales, to be honest. Operations don't
Oh,
get
the sales.
yeah.
And what does your chief or VP of sales, how would they describe this, what I would call the sales challenges? And if you don't know, that's okay, because that can be, what you might want to think about. But how would they describe the sales challenges in sales terms or business terms? Like if you could think back to the vocabulary that they use.
Fast-paced, dynamic, they're not able to implement what we are providing them from learnings. So like if we are doing a kind of like, let's say, consultative sales training or negotiations, so how to actually take those learnings and take it up in their day-to-day duties.
I can see your kid, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's actually almost 7 p.m. here in Dubai, and she's just like done.
She wants to
work.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay. Don't worry. Thanks for that.
Okay. So yeah, so basically it's just how to implement the learnings in their day-to-day work, because it's a very dynamic environment. They're very busy. So we just want to make sure that they take these learnings out there to make the training hours worthy.
Okay, so can I use you as an interesting guinea pig case study, if that's okay?
Well, anything but pig, but okay.
Oh, sorry, apologies. I am Muslim as well, so I should have known that. But it's a phrase. It's a phrase. My apologies.
No.
As a guinea hamster. So cultural awareness, clearly. I don't know where my own Islamic awareness went there.
Totally kidding.
No, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. I'm taking Mickey out of myself. So what I was gonna say, so I was at a restaurant yesterday and they said, could we have wine on the table? And I said it'd be preferable if you didn't. So you know, it's such a live maybe such a live conversation. But what I was, the reason why I wanted to treat you as a hamster is because so my question was what are the sales challenges as they see it, right? And our tendency is to try and connect it to the learning that we offer. And this is the number one opportunity in us adding values. Like, what are the business terms that they use and they see as sales challenges? So, for example, in my company where I used to work, it was that we were going towards personalized marketing, and the team did not have the skills and knowledge in personalized marketing. And the reason why they were doing that is because, you know, like when you get dear, hello everyone, nobody really replies to that email. But if you say dear Sarah, dear Grace, dear Crystal, you think, oh, does this person know me? And personalized marketing means you can actually start to give more personal information, which means you can grow revenue. And that's where that was the sales priority for the chief sales officer. So they then wanted me to figure out how do I connect that into a learning solution to upskill people. So it's a question to, and it's a lesson and a learning potentially for everybody is when we say we need to connect it to business problems, sometimes we step over the business vocabulary because we don't understand it, right? And it's an imposter syndrome. We don't think we should know this language, and we feel like we shouldn't be using this kind of language. But what we could go back to say is, go back to the language that they use. They are telling us the business priorities, but we may not be giving ourselves the permission to feel comfortable in using that language.
Actually, fortunately, I come with a sales background, so it really gives me an advantage on using terminologies that I know, like a sales director want to hear. So when I say like business impact and ROI, and I was just telling Jenny and Karen, like I make sure my slides, whether it's a past or current or an upcoming training, I show them measuring impact. The tool that I'm using for measuring could be something silly, such as, like, I call it silly because sometimes it doesn't really show. It could be like the measuring tool was our voice of employee improvement, you know, when it comes to that aspect. Or a survey is the tool that I'll be using. So, or retention, we were able to retain a few of the employees because of this kind of training. So they start listening and they want to know more, and they want to see the ROI in a way, right? So these are like terminologies that they're interested in here. So it works. It definitely works to get them listening. And along with that is to always be there if possible. Like, I know now a lot of us work hybrid or work from home, but if possible is socializing with people that you are providing these learnings to, right? So the more they see you, the more they know you, the more you connect with them, you get to know their challenges, you get to know what they're facing, they talk to you. So when you go back and talk to their leaders, they're like, oh, she knows or he knows, you know, what's happening in our dynamics. It helps.
Great, awesome. And sorry, Jenny, go on.
I was just going to actually piggyback on that thought. I think the one thing I would add is
piggyback. We can't say that either.
I know. Yeah, I think, you know, in our group we talked a lot about, okay, well, what hasn't worked in the past, and I think Sarah had mentioned a question she used to ask was, you know, if you don't mind, what do you need, right? And so that obviously opens up a whole can of worms that you don't want to be getting into. You've got to get the A through Z of, you know, solutions that people want. But I think to Saad's point around, well, actually talking their language, talking their vocabulary, actually you can ask and rephrase that question around, what does success look like for you? What are the outcomes you want to achieve, right? So if we do this type of training or learning, what do you think will then be the result of that? Is that going to be better revenue? Is that going to increase sales? Is it that people will actually know how to do that personalized marketing? You know, like, what is that end result? Because then ultimately they can actually visualize what that outcome is, because then that helps you create that learning. It gets that buy-in, right? And it helps you actually connect that to what they ultimately want done versus just, again, it's just this L&D project or this thing that you're doing. And then, they can't even relate to it.
I love that. I love that. That's so awesome.
And
Well,
that's
we've kind of like only got 4 minutes left, and I don't think it will do the exercise justice, but I will tell you in a second what it is, and maybe you can do it as like a homework exercise. But I wanted to hear from Sarah Z, which business line you're with, and a similar question, like what would you say would, in the words of whoever your senior stakeholder is, VP, chief, well, how would they describe what the business issues are for them?
Sure. So I work for an insurance company. So the primary group that I support is claims, which is where I came from, similar to Sarah.
Mm.
I'm a SME who became an instructor. They would talk about indemnity and our loss ratio, basically. Those would be kind of the big hitters for them. So yeah, which it's funny because I just had a check-in with my colleague and I who support the claims department. We just checked in with the VP yesterday, and I'm like, we had a nice conversation, but literally nothing revolved around those topics at all. So I could make better use of
Mm.
that time. It was a good time of connection, but that particular conversation was not strategic in any way. And if
Mm.
I want it to be that, then I can approach it differently.
Yeah, that's great. So you already got like two metrics there. I mean, if there was one thing that if you would want them to focus on to make the conversation a bit more strategic, what would be that topic or what would be that question that you could do to kind of nudge them a little bit?
Yeah, probably something along like what's the lead measure of the loss ratio that you're trying to influence right now? Like what's the one thing, like the worst result that you have, I guess, that contributes to the loss ratio, and what can we do to influence that thing?
Yeah, love it, love it. And even from you were in the team. What was in when you were doing claims, in your experience, what was causing which in terms of directionality, so the loss ratio go down or up?
Yeah, you want it to go down.
Yeah, I was assuming so, but I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
In your experience being on the ground, what drives that? Like, what would contribute to it going high, which you don't want, and what would it contribute to
Right. Kind of leakage, basically, like paying extra days of rental that we don't owe, or extra days of storage if, following a car accident, if a car is sitting in a tow yard. It's things like that. And if you're sloppy and making contacts and getting a hold of people and taking the next steps to move the claim forward, or literally to move the car, a lot of times it's things like that that you lose a lot of money in a hurry. So
I can see some awesome opportunities there then to because you can speak the language, which is awesome. Same with Sarah because you're from a sales background, and then it's like they may see you though in a learning perspective. I don't know who it is, right? Because I'm also a
yeah,
SME, but then they because of my job title they don't know the background, and so you have to remind them. And
yeah,
then you can have more of an operational business question, and then say, oh, by the way, we could also do some kind of this is a process probably fix, or this is a strategy fix, or whatever. But we could also potentially do some learning in this area for this specific cohort around this specific issue that impacts loss ratio. But it's 1 point plan out of a 5 point plan. And learning is just one element. That's
right.
another way in which I bring learning into the conversation. Rather than saying no to training requests, I say yes, but it's a small element and it's a contributory factor rather than the whole answer.
Absolutely.
We're at
Thanks. I gotta
time.
jump.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Thank
We're
you.
at time. The exercise that we do with people, with colleagues, is called the WhatsApp exercise. And what that basically means is you find yourself in WhatsApp because you can message yourself. Has anyone ever messaged themselves on WhatsApp? Yeah, quite a few of you already. So what I find is when people put things in an email or in a presentation, because we think we have the space, so we just use it up. But if you've only got 140 characters on a tweet or on a WhatsApp, maybe offline, try and think about the message that you want to try and land and leave in the room with your stakeholder and try and get it down into a WhatsApp if you can. and see if you can, because it will force you to think a bit succinctly and it'll force you to stick to the headline message. Say, hey, so and so, I just want to let you know, or I wanted to see if we could talk about, and finish off the sentence. And where the inspiration for this is because I do it with a lot of clients and it works. But also for me, when I used to message my CEO, when I used to send an email, still succinct, there was about 3 paragraphs with a couple of bullets. And then because he was busy and traveling, I used to drop him a WhatsApp message to ask him to check his email. And in the WhatsApp, I would summarize this thing in like in 2 lines. I was like, it's crazy. So what I would end up doing is now I end up writing to him first in a WhatsApp and copying and pasting what I write to him in a WhatsApp into an email for formal approval for the audit trail. Because I found the WhatsApp used to just help me keep things succinct. I was like, why my email so long and my WhatsApp so short, saying the same thing? And he used to say the same thing to me. He goes, Sal, why is your email? Are you asking me for more things in an email? I said, no, it's the same thing. And he goes, but why did you share it with me in 2 lines in a WhatsApp and 5 paragraphs and bullets in an email? So that's the exercise, really, really simple. Jenny, thanks so much for kicking us off with your awesome personal story. Any final thoughts from yourself on what we've heard so far today?
I think just trust in yourself. You know, you guys know what to say and how you need to frame it and put into perspective to who needs to listen and who needs to be aware of it. So I think you guys have all the content there. It's just about how do you say it succinctly and to the right audience.
Great words, trust in ourselves. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll hopefully see you at the next
Thanks,
session. If you can
Saad.
join the clinic on 5th of November, come with a real challenge to the clinic and then we'll help you work it through. So if you've got a very specific challenge with the C leader, you can go into more detail. We usually have between 6 to 8 people, so we can go into more depth. It's like a kind of group coaching consultancy type thing. So I'll resend the link to everybody via email. Thanks all. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.